Hey, this is Zach. My debut album, Punching Jesus, is coming out November 9th. You can buy it on pre-sale on iTunes and Amazon now at hippienotHippiePod.com or scan the QR code on the screen. Thanks so much for your support. And while you're there, pick up a copy of AJ's new album, Too Fast for Rain, as well. Thanks. I'm Zach Moss.
And I'm AJ Fenney.
And this is
Hippie?
Not Hippie.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 50 of Hippie, Not Hippie.
Yeah.
I like the fact that your voice, your mouth wasn't open. There was a moment where I was like, is he just, how's he making that happen? And then I saw you working the switches there, and I was like, maybe he's pre-recorded his yeah.
No, man, I'm working on ventriloquism.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
You've been trying to...
Pretty good, huh? I got you already. You couldn't even tell.
Yeah, no need to pay for those classes. You got it.
Yeah. There's classes?
I guess so.
Oh, I thought you just put your hand up something and then tried not to move your mouth.
Man, I've tried that. I've tried that before. The old wife gets real mad.
Oh, God.
Okay, we're already off the rails. Today, you guys might notice, joining us, very special guest, Jonathan. God damn it.
Try.
Church. God damn it. Fuck.
Cherkoss?
Cherkoss. I would have had it, but I made eye contact and it was over.
Yeah, no. After my incident with Harry Condabaloo last week, I'm done.
Done trying.
I'm done. No, I'm not due for a mistake in a while.
Well,
I nailed it though.
You did. I ate it.
Yeah. All right.
So Jonathan is joining us here. He's from the Denver Psychedelic Club. He's also an attorney that has been working in cannabis for a while. And we're going to sit down, talk about a bunch of events that are going on, and try to get a little bit more insight on what's going on with the psychedelic legalities and things like that happening here in Denver. That's a big explosion here lately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excited.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
So yeah, you do want to keep it just like probably a few inches from your mouth. But.
And Jonathan, you're not originally from Denver, right?
Nope.
You're New York?
Yep. So I was born and raised on Long Island. Went to school.
Oh wow, you seem so nice though.
I know. Well, yeah. So I went to law school in D.C. So I kind of lost my
you lost your edge there.
Yeah, and I've been out here now for about 8 years. And so, yeah, I've definitely softened up a bit. But my brother, he's newer here, and he still sounds like he's from Long Island.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Still sounds like, God, I think of lawyers in New York, and I think of my cousin Vinny.
Yeah?
I mean, it's not far off.
No. Joe Pesci. What's a ute? The two utes.
Oh,
did you ever see that? Utes?
Oh, no. I don't know.
When he's in court, and Joe Pesci's going, are you telling me you saw the two utes walk out? And they're like, pardon me, what's a ute? And he goes, oh, I'm sorry, the youths. So did you see the two utes? So what brought you here from New York?
So from DC, I came from DC. Work mainly.
Okay.
I started applying for jobs. I was looking out here, and ironically, at the time, Denver was much cheaper than DC. And so I was like, hey, I should look in Denver. There were some marijuana jobs that were kind of becoming more available.
Gotcha.
And so I was like, I should check it out. I started getting some interviews and got a job offer and just decided to come out here.
What was your first job in the industry?
I worked for a dispensary doing kind of like operations stuff. So kind of like lower level kind of corporate work. So,
but still above a trimmer?
Which one?
Green Dragon.
Okay.
Yeah. It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what year was that?
That would have been 2016.
2016.
Yeah.
Oh, that was it. We got out here the same year.
Right after legalization.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty soon after. I came before the 2016 election. So that's how I was.
Yeah. You're like, Trump's coming to Washington. I'm getting the fuck out.
Well, he wasn't coming yet. we didn't know yet. I voted in 2016 here, which was different than voting in New York. But it's definitely not.
Yeah.
It was fun.
So it was New York to DC, and then you graduated from
American University. So
Okay.
I graduated in 2015 and graduated. Well, I finished up in December of 2015 and then came out here in April. Like it was 421. It was the day after 420.
Oh, that's wild. Because I moved in with Zach around April. I think it was April 15th of 2016.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. I don't remember specifically missing.
So did you have to specialize in something? Did you know you were planning to go into these like alternative chemicals?
No. So my background was in kind of international affairs, human rights kind of work, being in DC and things like that. And then wasn't getting jobs there, so I made a hard pivot
Okay.
to whatever would take me. But I've always cared a lot about cannabis stuff, and it wasn't something like DC when I was there had legalized and everything, but they didn't have a system. They still don't have really a regulated system, and so it wasn't really even available. Like because when I started law school, I don't think Colorado had even. I don't think Amendment 64 had passed yet.
No, because what was it? Medical was in. Was it in 14?
Medical
was a
was in
while.
2001,
Yeah.
I believe.
So
And
rec
then,
passed around 14, right?
Yeah, I think it
No.
was
Rec.
or 12.
I think maybe rec was. So what was? No, it would have been 12 because. Yeah, it was 2012
Okay.
But the
because
first
it was the year that Obama won re-election.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So for the re-election. So it was 2012, and then it was crazy. The day after it passed, I still was working at my store then or whatever. The next day we had 280 some phone calls.
Just like people out of state or just people?
People out of state, like, holy shit, marijuana's legal in Colorado. Can I come buy weed? And we're like, no, like the law passed, but it's going to be a while before like recreational places are open. And it was just like that, like, just like people in other states, like, holy fucking shit, weed is legal in America. I can't believe it. And then a lot of people were like, and then you'd be like, no, it's not going to be like, there's a lot of people too that are like, hey, I heard that weed's legal. So here's my address. How do I send you money?
Yeah. Mail
like,
it.
because they're basically just like thinking that,
Forgetting that a mailbox is still federal.
yeah. And I mean, I don't know. The MED was such a joke back then.
Yeah.
My store suffered a lot for actually being in compliance and really enforcing a lot of the things because, like they were like, you have to have your red card. You can't get it on paperwork. But the state's like 8 months back on delivering red cards. The Med puts this out, and then we're turning everyone away with paperwork. Some people that had been shopping at our store for months, and like that we had a relationship with, we're like, that's the law, and they're like, well, the place down the street will see me, and we're like, well, when that place gets shut down for not following the law, then they never did shit. Like,
Yeah, it took a while for the inventory tracking to catch on, for them to actually like know what was going on.
yeah,
And then there were the political issues of where it was like it was being fought the state didn't want it, which I think is a big change from the.
What do you mean the state didn't want what?
Well, so Governor Hickenlooper was openly opposed to marijuana legalization and things like that.
Gotcha. So
there
it was literally pushed by the people.
It was pushed by the people. Yeah, and that's how Colorado pretty much does everything. So that's the same thing with natural medicines. The way that we now have that program, the decriminalization, that was all done by the people. The state, I think, was very quiet on this one.
Okay.
It was more about how the people were going to vote, and and then DOR, Department of Revenue, is now they're going to be doing a lot of the regulations around these, and like they're really doing, I think, a good job. They're having a lot of listening sessions, a lot of people on board, and it's like it seems like I wasn't involved when it was all going down in the first for cannabis, but it seems like there's a real investment on getting it right this time.
So I was heavily involved in the structuring of the laws, and I was part of like the business associations that were lobbying, and we helped kind of define a lot, and we really were trying to. I mean, I think there was a lot of trying to get it right, but then there was just so much. There's always wheeling and dealing in politics where they're like, and then people have these weird things where they're just like, there's a lot of things that didn't make sense that people wanted put through on cannabis that made it into there that just didn't make any sense. Like the way they wanted to track inventory and do a lot of things when it initially, like, are they still tagging every individual plant and like?
Yeah, they are working on making that a little bit better, the tagging of the plants, but it's still a big issue. They still have a lot of that.
Can we talk about that? This is going to be interesting because these are things that I don't know. And so there might be some of the listeners also that are naive to this. What do you mean by tagging a plant? So you're going to tag it the same way we would tag a cow that is going to be processed for beef?
Well, when I was so I got out in 2014, but basically there was RFID codes where you needed to track and submit into a system every fucking plant that you created, every plant as it died. So the RFID is not that complicated, but where it did get complicated is in the beginning they wanted you to tell them exactly how much weight you got per plant.
Oh, so they're wanting to know what the yield is.
Yeah, so when you're trimming a plant, you know, you had to trim each plant individually, then keep that trim separate so you could weigh the trim. You had to keep that waste separate so you could weigh the waste, and then you had to keep that pot separate so you could weigh the pot. And it was just like fucking, it didn't make any. And I think they've done away with a lot of it,
but there's still a lot of that. The RFID tag, so it's not dissimilar from that.
Okay.
It's basically it's a plastic tag that you have to pay for, and you put around a plant once it's above 6 inches tall or whatever it is. But it's a huge amount of waste. And it's a huge cost for the companies because you can't reuse them. So you get this plastic generated for your 10,000 plants every 3 months, basically. And so you're just producing a lot of trash and a lot of
and plastic is great for the environment.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah.
So, but you have to do that if you own a business, X amount of plants. You don't have to do that if it's a personal plant that you're growing because that was something once we got out here. If you wanted to grow, I think you can have, isn't it 6? Yeah. 6 per person?
Mm-hmm. 12 up in the house, I think.
Is it 6 veg and 6 flower or something now? I know they've
Wait, did you say 6 veg?
Yeah.
Yeah, so a plant when it's in its early stage of, basically a plant in veg is a plant that is getting 18 hours of light or more a day.
Okay.
It keeps it in a vegetative state so it's not flowering and producing buds, essentially.
Okay. So it's more like a wild plant.
Well,
it's just a young plant.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically when you're growing inside, you're kind of mimicking the seasons. And in the summer, you know how we have much longer days?
Yeah.
Those are the long days where the plant veges. And then as the days start to shorten, and you do this by changing, the amount of time that the lights are on in the grow to mimic the seasons. But as you get towards the end of the summer, the fall, the days get shorter. Then your plant starts producing flower because it knows that it's getting close to winter and it's going to die. So it starts producing.
Gotcha. That's interesting. I never thought about it like that. Is because as winter's coming and the plant's going to die, it's its last effort to try to procreate and just do what it's going to do.
Well, and it's just its natural system of procreation because, it creates flowers. The males create pollen. The pollen goes through the air. The flowers produce seeds. The plant dies. The seeds fall to the ground or get eaten by animals or birds or whatever, or fucking humans. And, pot evolutionarily figured out a good way to perpetuate itself. It's like valuable to humans. But, so... and then a lot of times, most pot is grown from a clone from a mother. So you have a mother that's always like in a vegetative state.
So what do you mean? It's at a vegetative state. So you're just kind of encapsulating a plant, never letting it flower, but then you're taking like an arm off of it and then transplanting it, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, when it's in veg, it's going to keep growing. So, then you cut branches off and then you cut the individual clones off there.
Okay.
And, you can
But then once the plant flowers, that's it. It's not going to it's not going to flower and then flower again. It flowers once and then the plant's dead.
Well, if you want to fuck with it, in theory, you can put it back into veg if you want to cut the buds off, and they will survive if you don't cut it at if you just cut the flowers off the plant and return it to a vegetative state. I don't know what happens. I think if you keep it in flower, it will reflower, but not very well.
Yeah, they're very resilient plants, but they get very stressed out. So you may be able to get it to do something, but it will probably herm out or
there's going to be a lot of weird. Yeah, the more stress you put it under, the more likely you are to have it become hermaphroditic and try to self-pollinate.
Gotcha.
And that's how you get seeds in a, even if you get dispensary weed, sometimes there can be seeds, and that's usually a sign of stress or something that because there's not male plants in the growth.
Well, and there are genetics too that are just predisposed to doing that.
Oh yeah.
There's just genetics that you're like, this shit fucking herms. It's really good weed, but it fucking herms a little bit, and that's just
So
kind of the strain or whatever.
You both might know this then. What happened to the seeds? Because when I was younger, all the pot used to have all sorts of seeds in it, and I know Monsanto's not.
So that was outdoor pot that did get pollinated.
Okay.
So it went through its natural life cycle. It was grown outdoors in Mexico. If you were lucky, California.
Old brickweed.
I was in Mexico recently and got some
Some seedy
seeds.
brickweed.
Oh man, yeah, it smelled like it had already been vaped, and I was like, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not flying with it.
But why you don't have any seeds in the pot now is because they're all female plants, and you don't have any males in the grow.
Oh, gotcha. Because
So
the
they
males,
never, if they don't get the jizz,
yeah.
they can't make the baby.
Right. But and there's no sense in having a male because it's not going to yield anything. So that if this is a money.
Only for genetics.
Only for
Right.
genetics and breeding and creating seed stock, because a lot of these mothers originally came from a seed. I mean, they all did. Every plant came from a seed initially.
Yeah.
So
there is like a weird sort of genetic propagation that you can do that doesn't involve actual a male plant, where you can kind of combine genetic tissue and it'll and that stuff was I haven't grown a plant in 7 years, and that was kind of like newer technology that was coming about years ago that I have no idea where it's at now, or if anybody.
I can't imagine it's. I mean, like maybe I'm just talking out of my ass at this point, because like there's no like, I don't know, but there's so much weed. There's so much they can come from, but you can get seeds everywhere. I mean, like a lot of places will start from seed theoretically, and then then you can start doing your clones and things.
Well, and starting a grow from seed is smart in a lot of ways, because that those genetics don't have like there's like a weird virus that you can get from tomato plants that you can give to fucking weed that really fucks your weed up.
Oh,
and
wow.
I feel like a lot of gardens have this virus. A lot of clones have this virus.
Now, is that something that the consumer, is that something that they can ingest and it's harmful, or it's just something that'll wreck the plant?
It's like a virus for a plant, Okay. It's not like, like you've never eaten a tomato and been like, man.
I've rarely eaten a tomato.
Well, yeah, maybe that's why you're worried that they'll get you. But why did I use the thing you hate the most?
I don't know.
You've never eaten a vegetable and been like, oh, that vegetable gave me herpes. Yeah. I mean, that would be what it would be like if it gave you the virus.
Yeah.
And this virus kind of is like herpes for plants in a way.
There's that one squash I ate late night in Vegas, but
yeah.
There's like genetic drift too. You can get when you're doing perpetual cloning. There's a whole. It gets really interesting at that point. That's more complicated than I've ever gotten, but it is kind of, there is a lot of
you can lose. You can kind of lose things if you've been pulling off of the same or multiple generations down the line from a mother, and there's like a point where it's good, where the genetic like stabilizes the most, and then there's a point where you like have like diminishing kind of returns,
mutations,
and
it's just punted square stuff.
Like it sounds. I'm fascinated by how much it is almost identical to farming. Like, I know I brought up cattle, but like the tagging of it, and then separating a male from you separate the bull from the heifers until you're ready to start procreating all this stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's fucking when people used to be like, "Oh man, you work in a marijuana grow," and I'm like,
I'm a farmer, dude.
Yeah, and they'd be like, you grow over 80 genetics, and I'd be like, yeah, it's fucking hell, man. It's industrial agriculture. It fucking sucks. Most of the day, you're fucking picking leaves and tying shit down and fucking
dealing with air conditioning,
dealing with AC or heat issues or humidity issues or floods or leaks or fucking mold or PM or.
Here's something that I'm curious about.
Botrytis or fucking aphids or...
Oh, aphids. I got aphids on...
Or people stealing it or...
people trying to break into the fucking place.
Driving trucks through walls.
Fungus gnats are such a...
Oh, I've been dealing with those with my mushrooms.
Yeah.
So what about...
So what do you
Yeah. Maybe we'll just
do? You
dive
use
into this.
nematodes?
No, I don't use anything. I just wait for them to die and use traps, like fly traps. They usually are, because I use tubs, they're usually self-contained. So they don't really get out much.
Are you starting your grows in a bag and then transferring to a tub, or is everything?
I start in a bag usually.
Okay.
Because I don't make my own like grains, but a lot of my friends who make their own grains, they start out of like mason jars.
Yeah, until the
and then it makes,
mycelium
like, a little
runs.
thing, and then you dump it out when it's ready to.
It's the same thing. It's just I do it
because
in a bag.
I've got some that are running right now, but it's very interesting. It's the first time, so I don't know, and I'm starting to get the little white balls on the top. And everything I read is like, okay, that's the beginning of your mushroom until it's going to sprout.
Yeah.
And then you'll have the little
Do you want to take it out of the bag?
You need to cut holes. You got to give it air.
So, yeah, I cut the top of it off
yeah,
and then vented the top and then retaped it just to keep it from getting anything.
Yep.
But
They're pinning them.
yeah.
Should be good.
So
you had
we'll
a little
see.
tiny white one?
Yeah, it's like little.
All over.
I mean, there's a couple that almost look like these little guys, but they're fuzzy. And so at first I'm like, clearly it's a mold. But I just want to make sure it's not been cross-contaminated.
It's a fungus.
That's a thing. It's like it's a fungus.
The mycelium.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, the mycelium, when I had pictures of the mycelium running, it was wild.
Yeah.
Like, before I shook what the guy called, hey, just shake the baby. That's what he kept going. He goes, shake the baby, buddy. You got to shake the baby.
Never shake the baby.
The mycelium ran. I mean, I had a spot like that, and then it just fingered out.
So the thing that's really
beautiful.
interesting about mycelium, different from like a seed, right? A seed's a singular thing. Mycelium, you squirt it in with the needle to wherever it goes, and different parts will start growing in different areas, and they'll all merge together.
Gotcha.
So it won't be as well, there are some weird things with you could theoretically have, but usually it beats it out. But it's really interesting how it sort of molds together into like the one thing from different. It's all clones. That's what liquid culture is. But whereas a spore is different. And so it's just really cool how it's kind of grows all together and like just links up and just like, hey, I know you.
From your inoculation point to fruiting, what's an average time period?
I would say probably around like from inoculation, you could do like, I would say like 45 to 60 days. You can do sooner.
Gotcha.
There are some strains that go faster that are more aggressive. I've not been super successful. I'm not really a mycologist. I've been growing. I've 5 or 6 batches now. But that's about what mine have been running.
Okay.
So we kind of talked a little bit about the marijuana laws and how it was like 6 plants and flower, 6 plants and veg, all of this. Like, now that it has been legalized at a state level, could you just go kind of cover the general basics of that law and what that means in that regard as to what you can grow or possess?
Yeah. So different from Oregon and Colorado passed. Oregon passed first. They have the treatment center model, which is what we have here. But what they don't have in Oregon and what we have, which is like very Colorado, of course, is the decriminalization and the home grow protections. So you're allowed to grow, possess, gift. You can't sell, and you can't like buy a plastic bag for $20 and it has mushrooms in it.
But you can buy spores and you can buy pre-sanitized blocks legally.
Yep, and liquid culture.
Okay. That's like a cake, right?
We actually did a contest for Hippie Not Hippie where we gave away mushrooms.
Oh, really?
Yeah, albino Averys.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
Yeah. It was the last Dead show, so we were like Dead and Co. and something to get you up.
We gave someone 2 tickets, some mushrooms, and a handful of nug.
Who made the syringes?
We just gave them mushrooms.
Oh, you just had mushrooms. Oh, okay.
Yeah, we had just
it wasn't a
gifted them.
syringe. Because you can gift.
Yes, you can
them.
gift. Yeah,
We're gifted.
That's
But
what I do.
we were wondering though, like, is it legal to do a giveaway and give away mushrooms?
Or is that weird because it's being advertised?
Like, we ran ads that were like, hey, if you do these things, it'll enter you for a chance to win mushrooms.
And Instagram and Facebook seem to be cool. TikTok fucking shut it down.
Oh yeah, TikTok was like, no way.
They're like, nope.
They're like, you can't even say mushroom on TikTok.
I don't know
I love the crook smile you have right now.
feel about that. But I mean, that's kind of weird, but there are some advertising restrictions, but since you guys aren't a licensed business,
That's true.
I don't know. It's a weird one.
So we're in the gray zone, possibly.
You're in the gray, for sure. Yeah. You may be in
I
the
like how you're like,
gray zone.
you're not exactly in the clear.
No, but you could be. I could be wrong. I'd have to like look at it some more, and I'm not.
So based on my interpretation, when I looked at it, I was like, I think there's an argument in the court of law that it's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, if you guys weren't getting remuneration, I say it wrong all the time. Remuneration. I don't see why it would be a problem.
Yeah.
Does it have to be? Because I mean, they did like our page or whatever to be entered.
Yeah, I would put that in the gray.
Yeah. My biggest concern was like when we were doing it, and it was randomized, but after the randomization, I mean, we were definitely looking for someone that might have already had some experience. I didn't want to give it to. My biggest fear was giving it to an extreme novice and their first time, and
it was totally random, and we were lucky that it was someone that looked like they had some experience. Because no, it was totally random, and I was like, man, if this wasn't. And what's funny is someone won initially, but they had
unfollowed us.
Yeah, they had unfollowed us.
Broke the rule.
They commented, but they had unfollowed or whatever. So yeah, it was like,
oops.
Moving on, yeah.
Yeah,
but yeah. So in the growing space, different from the plants, right? I think it's 12 by 12 you're allowed to grow in.
Okay, so it's a square footage.
Yes, it's a square footage.
So you can grow 144 square feet of mushrooms.
Basically, yeah, and but there's no third dimension in the rules.
So you can grow up as high as you want.
So you just start stacking.
I mean, you may be able
boys.
to just do like a stairway to heaven.
Also a gray area.
It's not really a gray area right now, but it could become one. But yeah, so you can do that. There's no possession limits either. So the way like cannabis, right? You couldn't have more than like 2 ounces on you or whatever. You could be walking around with. So there's no public display. So whatever you have needs to be away.
Right.
But there's no amount of mushrooms.
So you can have mushrooms like in your pocket, and if you get stopped, you're fine. If you
can have mushrooms in every pocket that you have, even if you're wearing giant cargo pants, and you can fill them, and then it's still okay.
Wait, so you can walk around. You're telling me I can get Junko jeans. I can fill these with albino Averys. Jinko.
What did you say?
I said Junko. Junko is the new pair of pants that I'm making.
I would have just.
They have a very specific pouch for your mushroom.
This is a gray area.
I wouldn't do it. Right, driving is a different story, right? Because then the DUI.
Well, have they put that in? Because I know with cannabis you can get a DUI.
I mean, you can always. There was
Good
no
luck proving I'm on mushrooms, motherfucker.
I mean, you gotta pass the
You're not arresting me, alien.
I would say good luck passing the sobriety test, but yeah.
I could pass it.
That never changed. So even with Amendment 64, with the legalization of cannabis, that never changed the legality. It's always been illegal. It's been a concern, right? And people have talked about it. But it was never changed from Amendment 64. The only thing, honestly, that changed is that the law enforcement actually started to test for it.
Okay. To test for what?
For marijuana in like a fatal car accident or something that, or things. Yeah.
But now with mushrooms, I've always been told like in a urine test or something like that, what's going to show up is food poisoning.
I don't know if they urine test for food poisoning, but if they do,
it's poop.
Is it poop? You got a poop test?
It's not. Oh, it's not usually poop, and it's sterilized poop.
He's a doctor now too. Jeez Louise.
It can be poop, but
so how are they testing for like psilocybin?
It's not on a normal panel test. Like you would probably
gotta go in the butt?
No, I mean like you would need to be going to like a really high.
Really?
Like it's not on the normal test because you're dealing with really tiny amounts of this stuff.
Right.
It's not a normal substance that would be tested for because it's not something that's like a habitual.
Right.
I mean, yes, you could abuse mushrooms, but it's not the same. They're not looking for it in the same way like they were looking for marijuana, right?
Right.
In the 80s, today.
God. I just imagine if you were eating mushrooms every day for a month, by the time that month was done, you'd have to eat so much.
You'd be John Toll.
I don't know if you'd be.
That is. He is going to reach out. Okay.
I don't know if you'd still be working at the job that drug tests you.
Right.
At that point.
I just imagine the upset stomach at the amount you would have to get to what you're trying to do.
It depends, right? Because microdosing every day is a different story.
That's true. But if you're
But we don't even know what.
if you're moving
microdosing
from
means.
micro to macro, like I'm specifically talking about a macro, like someone who's trying to get out of their head every day, and then obviously doubling your dose to get the same result. By the time you hit 30 days, I mean, it's just I feel like that's a lot of nausea by the time you get enough of those down.
I'd be real tired.
Is it Tanya Sabrina that has a joke that's like, I find that microdosing is taking like just enough mushrooms so that you can do them at work. Or something like that. I feel like I'm butchering that joke, but.
Jonathan, what was your first psychedelic experience?
What was my first psychedelic?
Were you young?
I was young. Yeah, I think my first psychedelic experience was LSD.
Yeah?
I think it was like
High school, college?
right after I took the SATs for the first time. So that would have been junior year of high school, summer of
Yeah?
junior year. So 16, 17.
Was it an enjoyable
The first
experience?
time didn't go so well, huh?
No, it did. The first time, yeah, not the only time.
No, I'm talking about the
SATs?
the test. Yeah.
No, I took it the first time, and then I had done LSD, and then I took the second test, and
Yeah.
I did like 40 points better, which is nothing.
Wow.
But I was like, oh, look at that.
You're like, I did the SATs, now I do the LSD.
So LSD increases your SAT score.
I
by
think
40
that's in a
points.
gray zone.
I
No.
don't
is a fact.
I don't condone
You heard it here.
It was a self-administered
Yeah.
experiment. Wouldn't recommend it, but I did.
Yeah, I was
I
so
did.
hungover when I took my ACTs. Holy shit.
Yeah.
I took the ACT, not the SAT.
I took both.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I met a lot of people, and they were like, "Why did you take both?" I was
Yeah.
like, that's just what they told us to do.
Whatever you get a better score on is what you push through.
Well, so I went to state school in New York, so they kind of looked at both. But I did better on my ACTs, but I just sent both of them.
Wow.
But I don't know. I can't do math anymore, so I don't really know what happened. I can't do long division.
I abacadabbed my math section.
What?
All right.
Abacadabra. That's where you go A, B, C. And I got a 17, which was the minimum that I needed to go to the school I wanted. Like all my other scores are really good, but yeah, that one I was like, I'm hungover as fuck.
Dude, I did that at the. I can't remember if we've talked about this, but I took the ASVAB to enter the military, and I crushed it. Like I had like an 87%, and I asked what job I could do, and he goes, "You do that, you can have any job you want." I'm like, "Perfect." And I didn't know if I wanted to go in the military. So the night before I went to the actual MEP center to do it, I got wrecked, like just wrecked. And was so hungover the next day. I went in and I was like, I'm gonna leave it up to fate. Like, and I just started punching buttons. And when I got done, I'll never forget the lady at the desk going, "Wow, you're the fastest person we've ever had complete the ASVAB. You must be real smart." And I was like, "We're gonna find out." Dude, I bombed the fuck out of that. Like the recruiter was so mad.
Yeah.
It's a miracle.
Yeah.
Can you imagine how your life would have been different?
Yeah. It would have been bad. I think it would have been bad.
You know, you did kind of your old comedy photos though. You did have kind of like a soldier boy look.
I was a clean cut boy. Yeah. When I was drinking, I tried to look pretty straight laced
Yeah,
because I was fucked up like all the time.
yeah. So it was just a
Yeah. Now that I'm not drunk.
Trojan AJ.
Yeah. Now that I'm not
Trojan
drunk all the
businessman.
time. Trojan man.
We used to, when we would go to like fish shows in New York and stuff, we would put like a button down shirt on just to drive.
Yeah.
And then like once we
And then
got
break
there,
it
it'd
up.
be good. But if I was driving on the thruway, like if we were going to the SPAC or something, like we would dress.
Wow, dude,
Dress up.
I didn't realize this at first, but I got pulled over so much. I worked overnights at UPS, and coming home back to Leavenworth on 435, I got pulled over like 7 times one year. And it was just because I had a Grateful Dead "Steal Your Face" on the back of my truck. And then I was
yeah.
like, oh, Jesus Christ.
I know, I've never had that. Well, I've gotten pulled over, but I've never had the sticker because I knew better.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of times where I've been somebody's like, or I've thought about like, oh, this is a sticker, and then I'm like, No.
Yeah.
I don't think so. Man, the people that have the stickers of all the breweries they visited on the back of their cars, I'm like, you're fucking, oh my gosh, you're so brave. You are so brave.
Yeah.
I like, really, you literally are
Yeah.
just like, I drink everywhere I go. Like,
I might be drunk right now.
yeah, no, chances are I've had a few.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's Colorado.
Yeah. I have a tolerance, officer.
So, wow. So you can have 12 by 12. You can possess as much as you want. You can give them away. You just can't sell them.
You can't sell
Yep.
them.
So
You can also give, for now at least, you could give services. So like you could.
So it's, I was gonna say it's Colorado. So what is our loophole that we
Wait.
figured out to sell mushrooms legally in the gray area here?
Go ahead.
Well, so it's not like it's not selling. It's consuming. And so you can do like the facilitation kind of things like that, more spiritual, Native American practices, things like that. Those are allowed. You can get paid for your services, but you can't advertise like the psilocybin aspect. So that's
because
a limitation.
I know Oregon just opened like a university.
So how are people
It's
advertising?
like Changa University or something like that for psilocybin facilitation.
Yes, so there's the training courses that are going to go in, and that's going to be that's going through DORA. So that's the Colorado Department of Regulatory Agencies.
So is Colorado doing that as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can you say psychedelic therapy though?
I can't because I'm not a psychedelic therapist, but
Well, there's a new,
But it would be
there's a new
yes,
thing. Like,
yeah, so-
what's stopping me from saying, hey,
But you're
I've
not-
done a lot of mushrooms. I've read a lot of self-help books, and I think I could, give people mushrooms and help them. What's from stopping me from just doing that in my house?
Well, I think if you were to get
Nothing.
Right.
That's what I figured.
that's
yeah.
what as the rules are now. As long as you're not out there saying, "Oh, come to my thing and $20 for an eighth of mushrooms," or
Right.
whatever it is.
Yeah,
Like,
but if I said, $200 for a psychedelic therapy session with,
I don't think you can call yourself a therapist even at this level. You can't do it. Like
So
you have to be a facilitator.
so the
Unless
facilitator's
you're
the state license,
Right,
They're
but-
not so it's not a therapist, but
Right.
there's a therapy. It's a treatment center. A therapist is. I've learned this recently. So
psychedelic guide.
yes, absolutely, that's totally
Yeah.
fine. But I've learned this recently. Is like a therapist is a specific thing, but it's not. You could be a therapist. Theoretically.
Yeah, well, like that, you were going to get that fake degree.
That's not a fake degree. It was a degree in contemplative psychology.
It's a fake degree.
So here's an interesting thing, though, why we're talking about this. I just went through the process to get evaluated for CAP again, which is ketamine-assisted psychotherapy. And this is the most amazing time to be alive because I got my anti-nausea medication across the street from where I live, and later this week, my ketamine is showing up in the mail.
Yeah.
Like it's insane. Like they now give me a prescription for these troches, these lozenges, and so those will just come in the mail as I need them.
Yep.
But insurance will not cover the actual session.
No.
It's still like $400 to sit for
So
3 hours.
you can just take them at home though now.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you could.
But it's a so those are those are prescription based,
Yes,
and the
but it's also extremely inexpensive.
it's an off label use for
Yeah.
ketamine. So that's one of the things why it's not getting covered by insurance yet. Is that
Yeah.
it's not like ketamine isn't approved for. And I could be wrong. This could have happened recently, but traditionally it's not approved for the treatment of treatment-resistant depression. It's
right.
It's not a painkiller necessarily. It's a disassociative, but it's used in surgery and emergency medicine a lot, and veterinary stuff. But that also is something like the horse tranquilizer. It's not. I mean, yes, it is. It's a tranquilizer for anything. It's not like. So the joke that it's you're doing horse.
Yeah.
Like no, this is and like ketamine is and ketamine is not a natural medicine.
No.
It's not legalized under our thing, but it is a WHO like. I don't know if it's a required drug or like one of the basic drugs that every country should have.
Yeah.
So LSD is not covered under this thing either. So LSD is still very illegal.
Yeah. So under Proposition 122, and then that's the Natural Medicine Health Act, the decriminalization affected DMT, ibogaine, mescaline, not derived from peyote. And
So peyote is still illegal.
it's only allowed for native practices and psilocybin mushrooms.
But those are made in mescaline if it's not derived from peyote's made in a lab, correct?
No,
San
'cause-
Pedro's.
Yeah.
Okay.
All those cactuses I got grown in the house.
Yeah, there's a lot of psychotropic cacti out there.
Okay. There is. You can make it in a lab though as well, right?
You can make all of them in a lab. So
Yeah.
there's synthetic psilocybin.
Where's DMT naturally
it comes
obtained from? The
five-
adrenal gland of it.
5-MeO DMT
That's-
is a toad, right?
That's toad venom. That's also a lot of synthetics. It comes from I forget exactly what the plant is. but
So the
it's some
toad
sort of
venom is
bark.
still illegal.
Oh wait,
The toad venom's not covered under ours. It's
the
not-
DMT's not. It's not the same derivative from like ayahuasca, right? Like because there's the bark and the vine or the root.
Yes. So DMT, and I'm not an ayahuasca expert, but DMT, ayahuasca is an orally available DMT due to the MAOI. So the MAOI inhibitor, or the MAOI in the other plants. So it's a mixture of two things. The DMT is in a lot of
Right.
a lot of plants and things.
I believe it's in our brain.
It's in most natural things, but there's
It's
different.
released when you die,
barks.
right?
Yeah.
That's what they think anyway.
But we've
And I
never
think-
had anyone die and go,
and-
it didn't seem like DMT.
And I have a theory that your brain releases a little bit of it when you do that thing where you breathe really hard and then pass yourself out.
Yeah, any near-death experience, your brain is your brain's going. Your brain's
Have
going.
you ever tried
haywire.
that?
DMT?
Where
knocking
you breathe,
yourself
where you
out?
breathe real fast and then somebody does that and you pass out?
No.
Have you?
Yeah, dude, we definitely did that. I did it to.
I mean, I've been sleeper.
we did it to a friend.
I've been put asleep.
Yeah, did you go somewhere?
No.
I fished out when
That's
I
just-
did it. When they knocked me out, I fished out. So like, I didn't go
you fish
easily.
out and you go to another place. You
Oh
have
no,
a
I
little-
was fighting the whole time. Like physically, I flipped out.
Oh,
I
you
just
didn't
go to
have
the
you didn't
knockout.
have a little mental journey.
No, dude, my
darkness.
journey was like, fuck you.
Oh wow.
But we did knock this guy Jesse. He was on 2 hits of acid, and he wanted to do it. But the problem is, he put his hand up when we push on his chest. I was an observer of this whole thing, by the way. And he goes, they were like, Jesse, when you start to black out, put your hand down. Simple instructions, not easy for someone on LSD. So he would just forget and start laughing, and then he would start to go down. And they're like, dude, you got to put your hand down. He goes, yeah, I forgot. Finally, he did it, and he passed out. And then we went around the house and then waited. And when he came around, my cousin goes, where the fuck have you been? And he's like, you guys knocked me out. And he goes, dude, that was like 3 hours ago. And he goes, no. And he goes, yeah, dude, your mom called. That was the worst part about it. So when they said that, he goes, well, I better call her. And then he called his mom. He was fucking tripping. Just people so huge. And he goes, what do you want? Why are you bothering me? And I was
Just
like,
let
oh,
him call
no.
his mom. That's where
Yeah,
I'm like
yeah.
bad friends.
Yeah. That was
Great prank,
Again,
prank. Up until
again.
when you let him call his mom.
again observer. I was the oldest. I'm just like, these are your friends.
Yeah, but you could have got involved. No.
Yeah, but man, that phone call, I'll never forget it.
Was it a good call?
Dude, it was ridiculous. And he goes, I got to go home and talk to my mom. Oh, and he never came back.
Yeah.
Ever.
No, you could hear her going, you could hear her going, Jesse, are you on drugs? And he goes, no. Yes. No. So
Just couldn't deal with it.
yeah. But I will say this, that the ketamine that they compound, they make it for the delivery. And dude, it's cheaper than any generic medication I've ever bought.
Really.
It's crazy. Like, I'd have to do it because the
How
reason
much are the lozenges?
for all the ones I'm getting is like $30.
And how many are you getting?
I think if I did the math right, I'm getting like 1,800 milligrams.
That's not bad.
No, it's really inexpensive. And the thing is
It's 1.8 grams.
yeah.
Yeah, 1.8 grams for $30.
Yeah.
So it's like what's happening is like the reason you have to go through those 6 initial
That's
sessions
half a
when you
ball.
do it.
That's $60 a ball.
You're is that titrate level to figure out how close you can get in a disassociation before you black out. Because then once you black out, it's non-valuable for therapy.
Yeah, then you're anesthetized.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So that was the other thing. I don't know how this translates because I was at 120 on the IM was my ideal. So I don't know how that translates into the trochees, but apparently these things are sent in like cubes that you can break into quarters, and they're like 100 milligram cubes.
So what about sassafras?
Sassafras. So that's Molly.
But there's a way to get it from a root, though, right? As well.
Well, that's where that's where it comes from. So sass, I think, it's called sass. It's MDA, but it does. There's the sassafras root that you can extract. I mean, that's a lot more advanced chemistry than again I know, but like,
sassafras root oil.
That's not covered though by the law.
No.
That also was in the original recipe of root beer to give it its flavor.
Sarsaparilla.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, it smells like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you get, but like, I mean, that's right. That's an extraction. That's the same way with LSD, right? It comes like technically the
ergot,
precursors. Right? Ergot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Moldy rye.
Yeah. But that is like one of the things you need to. There are other chemicals, obviously, but it's one of the things that you need to get.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's weird.
So LSD was the first psychedelic that you went through, and it was pleasurable.
Yeah. It was great.
Okay.
Loved it.
Did you decide to move forward, or at what point did you decide that you were going to do like psilocybin? When was the first time you did that?
Soon after.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was soon after.
So you got turned on quick, and you're like, I'll just keep going.
Yeah, and then I started like I think I had already started listening to Grateful Dead, so I was already receptive to it.
Were you okay? So you were in the Dead, and I heard you say you were going to SPAC to see Fish. Was this after the psychedelics also, or were you in that before?
No, I was into I saw Rat Dog in 2006. So that would.
Oh yeah.
So that was like when I was 15.
Okay.
Or something. 15.
Bob Weir.
So Cat Dog.
Rat Dog.
Rat Dog.
Oh,
dude,
Oh yeah,
I've seen Cat Dog.
I forgot when we went over all of the different iterations of the Grateful Dead.
Yeah.
That was one, Rat Dog.
Yeah, Rat Dog. You can get this on archives. So I think it's the Fox Theater in St. Louis. It is around April or March, April, somewhere like that. 2014. If you listen to Rat Dog, they open with Hell in a Bucket, and then Bob Weir forgets the lyrics.
Yep.
That's because I don't want to say it's because of me, but we were like, I was holding down the front row, and he looked at me, and you know that point where someone looks at you and you're like, oh, I know you. And he was looking at me, and I was like vibrating. I was like, you don't fucking know me, dude. And then all of a sudden he just goes, I was going to hell. And I was like, I lost it. And you can hear that. That's my golden moment every time on archives where I'm like, I did that. I fucked that show up.
Yeah.
that he thought that he knew you.
I felt bad because I had written a joke about Bob Weir's short shorts and then how he was kind of wearing capris.
Yeah.
And I'd made a joke on Twitter that was talking about the reasoning had to do with the elongation of his balls. So that had gone out like a month before the show, and there was a moment where I was like, "Oh God,
he knows I've been talking about his balls." Bobby knows I've been talking about his balls, and he's mad.
He's mad. Those balls are inflamed.
He's mad. He's gonna get them out. He's gonna hit you with them. He's gonna knock you across the head.
Jonathan, when did you get involved with the Denver Psychedelics Club?
Yeah, so Psychedelic Club of Denver, I've been involved with on and off, not on and off, sort of. I've been in the peripheral for a while now. They started in 2016. I really started getting involved because I started meeting people who were in it. I went to some meetings back in the day. I started really getting involved with them and like learning more about them during so Psychedelic Club is a nonprofit. But the members and stuff are very active in the community. And so a lot of the members of Psychedelic Club and the leaders were very involved in the Denver decriminalization measure that came before Prop 122. So where we legalized mushroom possession in Denver and all of that stuff. So Psychedelic Club has been on my radar for a while. Friends with Kess, Katie, like a lot of the leadership.
Yeah.
And so just kind of kept that going. But then really I got really involved with them when we started planning the cup. So the Psychedelic Cup that we're working on, that was something where I had talked with the lab that we're working with, Altitude in Englewood, and they were really interested in doing like a competition, but they wanted to work with like a nonprofit. And I was like, well, I have the perfect nonprofit.
Yeah.
Psychedelic Club. And
so you were one of the facilitators of getting the Psychedelic Cup kind of
yeah.
pushed in. That's great.
Yeah. I don't like the term facilitator because of the legal connotations.
Well, yeah.
But yes.
Sorry, you're a therapist.
Right, a doctor.
You're a gray area.
Yeah, you're a gray area.
It was just one of those things where I had felt like I wanted to start learning more about mushrooms. I wanted to do some extraction stuff, just get whatever. I saw that Altitude did an AMA on Reddit, and so I was like, oh, well, this is cool. And I walked in one day with my mushrooms, and I was like, do you guys take mushroom samples? And they're like, yeah. I was like, here.
Okay.
And then they tested them, and they're great guys. I live 5 minutes from
So I'm very familiar with cannabinoid testing and the levels. Give me a rundown of how what's your lab look like when it comes back on mushrooms?
Yeah, for sure. And Altitude does cannabis. They do. They're not licensed by the state. They do home grow or R&D stuff, but they use HPLC. So the whatever liquid chromatography. I forget what it stands for. High pressure.
What's the acceptable margin of error?
I don't know. Oh, right now there is
it's plus or minus 8% with THC.
So we don't have regulations yet on that. So the lab there's a couple of labs in Colorado that are doing this, that have started offering testing and all of that stuff. But so it's very similar, right? It comes back. We're doing a 12-panel test, I think, on these. So it comes back with the percentage by weight of psilocybin and psilocin, which are considered the actives.
And what percentage of a strong mushroom, what's a good number on that?
So, good number is relative.
Strong
number.
What's a high number?
I mean, I haven't seen anything over. So it goes by 3 milligrams per gram, which would then be 30%. Psilocybin, I haven't seen anything over 30, and that would be for a
wouldn't 300 milligrams per gram be 30?
Yes.
So 3 would be...
No, you're right. Yeah, see, I'm bad at math.
So 3 out of 1,000?
It'd be 3%.
So it'd be 0.03, right? Percent?
I don't know. Now
I think it'd be 0.03%.
But 3% is the highest that I've seen. So
3%.
Yes. So
okay.
yeah, I'm usually off by a factor of 10. I don't know why. But yeah, so 3% would be astronomical for a normal cubensis mushroom, and would be pretty much blowing out any of the other species. So for the cup that we're doing, we are going to test for cubensis and non-cubensis.
Yeah.
So those are different species rather than strains.
Yeah.
So when you think of a mushroom, a psychedelic mushroom, unless you're thinking of something that is basically starts with a pan in front of it, like a pea or a pan, you're going to be talking about a psilocybin mushroom. So
gotcha,
any of the strains,
like a penis envy.
Yep, penis envy, any of the blob mutations, any of the albino Avery, anything like that, golden teachers, those are all cubensis.
Gotcha.
Those are all one species. They're similar to cannabis, right? The way that there's different strains, but we don't know yet what the differences are.
Is that got to do with some of this testing to try to figure that out?
Yeah.
Because I was blown away when I started looking at spores and how many different variances there are now.
Yeah, and that's relatively new. So, right, cannabis, there's always been a lot of innovation. There's always been a lot of strains. But with the mushroom boom, it has really exploded, not because of the legalization, but just I would say in the past 10, 15 years, we've really seen the creation of a huge array of mushrooms.
Yeah, I mean, I feel so I had some buddies, and my buddy and I, we grew some in college. They were Puerto Ricans. And that's the name of the strain. They were an actual Puerto Rican.
In my head, I just saw Puerto Ricans growing up, and I'm like...
But at the time, it was kind of the
Elaborate.
consistent, it was kind of the opinion of all the online communities or whatever, that between Puerto Ricans and penis envy, those are the two strongest strains at the time. But there wasn't there was 10, 15 options, I felt when we were looking at spores back then.
But a lot of people, I've heard people say they're all the same. For the most part, these mushrooms are very similar. It's not like with LSD where it's because it's made in a lab, there's varying degrees of what's going to happen.
Well, so there's the saying a cube is a cube. So right, a cubensis is the same as a cubensis everywhere, but we don't have the testing data to show that. So even even with the mushrooms in the past 10 to 15 years, people really haven't had accurate lab results and haven't felt like, I mean, it exists, right?
Right.
People have been doing it, but it's been much more like underground. You got to really go for it and like find how you're going to get your stuff tested. Whereas now we're really trying to figure out like what are the differences? Like, does it matter?
Right.
Like in the end of the day, does the strain actually matter, or is it just the composition? We don't know.
Yeah, they just manifest in a different shape or a different.
color.
Well, yeah, because like penis envies and albino Averys also. I've seen some wild looking ones.
There are some really weird looking ones.
Oh yeah, I've seen some that are just like this fat. And
Like
they're
there's
just
the upside down ones that the cap will grow like up.
Yeah, and
instead of out.
I've seen the gills on some of these things that are wild.
Yeah.
Really, my some of my favorite that I've ever had is a truffle.
Oh yeah, what about
Psychedelic truffle.
Well, truffles are more like underground, right?
Suck. They don't suck. So truffles are hard
There's
to.
somebody listening right now that's going, "You're in a gray zone."
I know. No, I mean, I am definitely in the great. But from what I've heard, like truffles, like generally speaking, are much like
milder.
They're not as easy to grow.
They're really hard to grow. They don't yield very much.
Yeah.
I had a friend who grew some, and I was like, "Hey, I want some." And my buddy made them into some chocolates because they're very hard and
yeah, I
they're not
had
easy
some of
to
those.
work with.
Yeah.
But those chocolates, I felt like I was like rolling.
Yeah, but then they're not super. They're not supposed to be super powerful either.
As far as visually,
But I really,
potency
I
wise.
Gotcha.
really loved the body high that I got from them. It was like if I could describe it as something, I would say a new soft drug.
it's the drug of a new generation.
So if you haven't tried have you tried the?
I've only
truffles?
had the like fresh truffles in Amsterdam, and I didn't eat enough of them because they were really gross. Like,
Oh, just
worse than
taste-wise?
Oh god, they're wet. They're not dry.
Oh.
And so like not that the dry makes it better, but
No, but
the wet
you can
makes
get them
it worse.
down.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Well, sorry. The
go ahead.
panel. So 3%.
Yes.
Psilocybin or
Yeah, it's usually psilocybin. So psilocybin, then psilocin. So psilocin,
what's the difference between the two?
Psilocin is what psilocybin breaks down into. So
okay. So it's kind of like your trichomes on pot going to an amber versus a clear. You know, they start
No.
clear, then go cloudy, then go amber, and
it's more like decarb.
okay.
Which, and this is, I tell everyone I tell this to, it's not the same. It's called dephosphorylation in mushrooms. It's a completely different mechanism. It's not the same thing at all. But if you want to think about it that way and not tell other people that that's what it is, that's the best way that you can, right? It's a removal of a.
And
of
if
a
you're at home,
thing.
decarboxylation is heating cannabis to a point where you activate.
Where you can eat it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So
Where
you
you can
can't just
eat
like
it.
eat a raw nug and get high. I mean, yeah, maybe, but like you can't really
Probably have to eat a shitload.
a lot of you
Yeah.
would get sick before you'd be
Yeah.
able to get high. And it's sort of the same thing. I think decarb is removing the carbon, dephosphor is removing the phosphorus.
Unless
Now
you're
it's too
running
much,
a really high fever.
But
If you're running a fever of about 225 degrees
For a
and you
while.
eat some cannabis for you know, then
but yeah, so in the test we look at psilocin is present in some mushrooms. We don't know if it's fully because of degradation. So the oxidation and the heat of psilocybin will convert into psilocin. Psilocin's really it's really unstable. So it's so like lemon tech, if you're familiar with that, where you like extract mushrooms with like lemon and water.
Okay.
Yeah.
Drink that. That's good for that day, basically. But the degradation of psilocin is rapid, and like it would like disappear. And so when you have heat and water, you end up with psilocin, which is active, but you need to ingest it.
So when I travel, a lot of times I'll make tea and just take it in a thermos, but I keep it cold. Like after I make the tea, I chill it and I take it, and it seems to work fine for multiple
days.
days.
That's interesting. Okay, I mean, if you keep it closed, right, and like
Well, I keep it closed and I keep it cold.
yeah.
So,
yeah, and then
like-
the oxidation probably wouldn't break it down as much, like break the psilocin as much.
Oh, so the fact that it isn't a sealed bottle is what helps preserve the
Potentially.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that's something else and like a lot of people like the pills, people order like the, mushroom powder pills online. And that's kind of one of the impetuses for this competition is to get people to start, because people will tell me, they go, oh, I get these pills and they're 0.2. I'm like, okay, 0.2 of what?
Right.
And they can't tell me. And I'm like, okay, but like, when mushrooms get ground down, they lose a lot of potency as well over time. So when did they get, like, what are they?
When were they ground?
Yeah, right. When were they ground? How were they kind of put into the pill? How does the pill hold, like, the does it prevent oxidation?
So it sounds like in a weird way, like a lot of us are probably concerned about the government getting involved in this. But it does sound like with certain regulations, it can be beneficial. Because if you're getting a batch of something and you know when it was put out and those regulations are put in place, it's for harm reduction, it makes more sense. Or just for the value of...
From a political and policy perspective, I agree with that. I don't think everyone needs to agree with it. But the point of this is to not to have the testing be required by the labs, but have the testing be required by consumers and producers. So
where there's a demand for it, and that's why they test for it, not because it's the government coming in and being like, you have to, and we're gonna get involved. We're gonna fucking tax it more. We're gonna make our fucking I'm with you. Like, I think it's nice to know the testing and the values of what you have, but I think it's a fine line once you let the government get their fucking foot in the door.
But we don't have retail sales. So under Proposition 122, unless like the legislature decides to become drug heroes, which I don't know why they. I hope they do. You should.
Well, the more mushrooms
that's true.
More people are eating mushrooms in Colorado every fucking day.
That's true.
And nothing will change your mind more than eating them.
but unless we go to the ballot, we're not going to have retail sales. So there won't. I mean, the places, obviously licensed centers, when they give mushrooms, they will have to be tested. They'll have to have a certificate of analysis showing everything that's there. But the regular people are not going to have access to the regulated market because it's not for sale, and so we have to demand it, because then that helps with other drugs too. So it's the same thing, right? The fentanyl crisis is still like massively important. It's massive, it's huge, it's terrible.
Once people demand testing on their cocaine,
when you have strips at home, right? Like I know that's one of the things psychedelic, and I've lost a bunch of people to like overdoses and things like that.
Well, test kits.
They do testing, they do fentanyl strips, they now have naloxone supply, so they can give out Narcan and things like that. And so like it's just it's of the same thing, right? Like, you don't, if you buy whatever, but like, if you're getting your drugs and they're powders, you're going to probably test it for fentanyl, or you should be, right, because you're literally at that point you're just gambling with your life.
Well, it's also beautiful, and I think, a lot of our listeners probably back this. It would shock me if someone was like, "Oh, what's up with the testing?" But you're not approving of some of these drugs, but you are saying if you're going to do them safely. That's, I feel like, what's happening now at raves a lot.
Well, more with the fentanyl, it's like somebody's saying this drug isn't fentanyl, and it's being like, oh fuck, they lied, and there is this drug that I think is Molly or cocaine, or whatever, could kill me,
because it's coming back down to harm reduction.
But it's and I've been using the term informed consent, with medical stuff, where you need to know what is going on. When you're having a procedure or something, they have to tell you what is going on, what the blah 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 is, and then you have informed consent as to whether or not you are going to go through with that procedure. But right now, people just say, I want to eat a half gram of mushrooms, but they don't actually know what they're getting. So they could have a really strong trip, they could have a really weak trip.
Well, and this degradation is very interesting to me, because that would explain experiences I've had with varying potency of the same bag or strain of mushrooms.
But there's also huge variations in the batches of mushrooms themselves that we've seen.
That's where I wanted to get into the testing too, because we used to submit like a bud from, a lower bud, a top cola, a middle bud, and we would come back with a wide range of different potencies. So, like, I was wondering, what have you found is the most potent part of the actual mushroom themselves? What is the variance between mushrooms in the same bag or block? And
we haven't gotten all of our results yet. We've got like over 500 samples submitted, so we're really looking at. We're trying to get all the data entered and like looking at all of that,
which is going to be great because you're good with math.
I'm awesome. The science people are going to be doing the lab people are going to be doing that. And now I'm completely forgetting what you just asked me. So what was it?
Just a different potency for parts of the mushrooms.
Yes. Oh, okay,
and,
right.
If there's in the same batch, like what's the variance?
Yeah. So similar, right? Similar to the way that cannabis has been going with like the NIDA dirt weed that they grow. Like the government has always been testing on the worst weed you could possibly grow in the world.
What's the purpose of that?
They only gave out one. They only gave out one license to the University of Mississippi to grow marijuana for the federal government. So everything now is 100 times stronger than the worst weed the government grows.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And the best weed the government grows.
The only weed the government grows. The
variant between two mushrooms.
Yes, so there's no testing that's actually been done on that. The lab that we've been going, there's been anecdotal stuff, there's been whatever.
You haven't, just for fun, given them like 3 parts of the same mushroom and seen like the variance in the.
Okay, I haven't because I'm not paying. I don't want to pay for that. But they do. They've done studies themselves, and we've started seeing. So there's things called aborts. They're little aborted mushrooms. They're very small. Usually have like dark blue or even darker caps.
Little pens.
And they're very strong.
They're very strong.
So that's always been my go-to is I want to eat the littlest whole mushroom that I can find.
So the aborts are so strong that we actually are not allowing people to like just do aborts. But so the thing that we've seen is usually the smaller ones are going to be higher in potency. What we haven't really figured out yet, and maybe someone has, and I'm just not privy at all, is like, at what point does the production of psilocybin start, and when does it stop? And I think that is a function of what it's used for the plant, right? If it's as like a deterrent for an animal to eat it, I would imagine it would want it as soon as possible. Yeah. Right. It wouldn't be, right. And like, what would be the benefit to it maturing unless it was trying to make animals trip ball? That seems
right. So if it ate it at a small level and it was extremely potent, the animal would go, "Oh, I shouldn't eat this," and that gives the fruit enough time to mature.
That's what I mean. Like, I think that's one of the assumptions. That's what I've kind of been, but we don't. Yeah, really know.
For example, like trichomes that have the THC on cannabis are to protect it from the sun. It's a protective.
Oh, okay. I don't know. Yeah. But that's right. So there is a purpose for it, but at the same point, it doesn't really. They don't know, and the variance can be like up to like 50% in a batch because it's just like so different. It depends on what it's eating. Right, like if you have a smaller flush.
So when you back in the day, you split an eighth with your friend, and they're like, "I don't feel shit," and you're like, "I'm fucking on the moon."
But that's also subjective, right? Like my wife can eat a lot more psychedelics than I can. Yeah, she needs to. Otherwise, she'll be like, "I didn't feel that at all," and I'm like, "I don't even like." Right. I felt pretty good.
Yeah, I've always had a low tolerance to it, so sometimes I would just be way out, and people would just be like, "Yeah, I'm not feeling anything."
I consider myself I can take one.
Yeah,
like I can take more than one, but like I like to take one. Yeah, I know a lot of people would take like little halves of things, like whatever a dose is. I'm going to take one of it.
Yeah, and then if you need more, you can always booster.
Yeah, but with mushrooms, but at the same point, mushrooms I used to eat a half-eighth. I mean, I've seen some. I
used to eat an eighth when I was young, man. I used to, because I was used to eating a lot of acid, and like when I first ate mushrooms, I'm like, these are weak compared to acid.
But now you can eat some that would really take.
The mushrooms. I mean, those albino Averys. Like eating an eighth of those, that's like what I would consider a fucking heroic dose. You eat like a gram of those, and I've tripped so fucking hard. Yeah, like
that's what my buddy had these magnolias, and when he ate them, he was like used to doing this, and then working on some art, and all of a sudden, he was like, "Wait a minute," and started having slight visuals, and he goes, "I'm like barely 45 minutes into this, and now it feels like LSD." And then his roommates came home, and he was just like, "Oh, I'm not ready for other people to be involved in this right now."
Yeah.
So what is the best way? You said that these things break down and lose their. Is there a specific way I should be storing my mushrooms?
Yes. Well, there's more like specific ways you shouldn't be storing them. So you shouldn't be storing them in the freezer. Okay. Cold is not good for them. Heat actually isn't. I mean, like you're not going to get it hot enough. You can extract it. You can do. Mushrooms can take some heat. They don't love light, so I wouldn't put them in outside or something. I wouldn't let them cook, like in a windowsill. But like they're pretty. I would use a desiccant pack, like one of those things to keep the water out. But like, just don't put it in the freezer. That's something we've seen, and like which is ironic because there's freeze dried mushrooms can be better, more potent.
But you could just put them
Yeah,
in like a ball jar.
personally, that's my favorite way to, like, if they're freeze dried, I really don't even mind eating them.
Well, yeah, 'cause
plain.
then they don't have any. Yeah,
Yeah,
but-
they just are kind of. I gave some freeze dried mushrooms to my friend at a concert, and he ate them, and it was like some caps that were kind of flat, and in the dark, he just ate them. And the next day, my friend goes, "Hey, man, I want some of those mushroom or some of those chips that you gave my buddy." And I thought he was trying to use slang where he was like chips instead of mushrooms, and I was like, "Yeah, dude, I have some. I'll just give you, or whatever. Because I won't sell them, but I'll give them away or whatever." And I was like, "Yeah, I have some. I'll give you." And he goes, "Yeah, the chips." And I'm like, and I call him on the phone. I'm like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" And he's like, "Dude, he said that you gave him some potato chips that had fucking mushrooms in them in the dark because they were freeze dried caps. He thought that they were chips because he just crunched them down like a potato chip,
I actually haven't had the free. I need to get some of those because I really hate the way they taste.
Yeah.
Like, I can't get them. It's just.
I always found just keeping them in like a ball jar with a lid.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I keep them in a jar in my cupboard.
That's fine.
And so good to know not to keep them in the freezer.
Yeah. Which
'cause
is
that's
counterintuitive because something you would think like,
Well,
oh, I wanna
it's
keep it
weird
fresh.
because I
When
knew a lot of
LSD
people.
is better
cold.
frozen.
Yeah.
I knew a
good.
lot of people when I was younger. Like they would grow them and then they go, "Yeah, I keep a bunch of them in my freezer."
Yeah,
and so
no.
I think a lot of people do that to try to preserve them.
Yeah, it makes. I mean, like I
Well, yeah, a lot of things. I mean, meat, most veggies. I mean, the freezer. If you want to,
I mean, if you don't want it, yeah, like that's
if you want it, something organic, not to spoil, the freezer has been what we've been using for fucking ever.
yeah. But it's something with mushrooms too that like is people think it just is gonna stay whatever it is, and like they might not go bad, but they may change, and whatever like just not be.
So, is there any other active compounds in the panel that you get other than those two?
So there's baeocystin, norbaeocystin, I don't. There's a lot of them that I can't.
So it's like cannabinoids, where there's a lot of different active compounds that will affect the trip.
Potentially, right? Like, so we're trying. That's something that we don't really have enough data on, like at a scientific level, like research wise, like to look at like the entourage effect. But these alkaloids are there; they do things. Some of them are psychedelic, some of them aren't. But we're trying to figure out: is there a sauce, or is
like one of my favorite strains of all time is Pre-98 Bubba Kush.
Love it,
and it's not a high THC strain.
Yeah.
But it gets me so much higher than a lot of high THC strains, and I think it's just that cannabinoid combination that it contains is my body loves.
Right, yeah. And like it bonds to whatever, right? Like it is something where like the chemical has to go.
receptors right where I'm like, this is my shit.
Yeah. And there's a whole slew of different things in it, and like so we're trying to get that data, but literally they're adding new like when I started going to altitude, it was 2. They did psilocybin, psilocin, and then they added 4, and then
wow.
No, and it's weird because I have had mushrooms that I just like did not like Hawaiian PES or whatever. I really dislike that strain.
My wife has had a bad time from albinos.
Yeah,
Like she doesn't like the more of like I guess the spiritual whatever kind of feelings.
Have you noticed? This is something that
they made me angry
when I was younger. Was like
Really?
They made me
the albinos
feel
did.
No, the Hawaiian PES. They made me feel kind of angry, and then they also like they took a very long time to kick in. I felt like they took 2 hours to kick in, which if I eat a drug, I hope it kicks in the next hour. That's just like and just if you're trying to time mushrooms for something, like I took them and went to Meow Wolf in Vegas, and then was like leaving, and I was like pissed, and I was just like, I finally like started tripping the last like 20 minutes I was there, but it just made me like hate. I'm not a fan of that Meow Wolf. I don't know if it has to do with those fucking mushrooms or what, but I was like, I don't fucking like this place.
Yeah,
but it's all subjective, right? Like, and there's the sort of people who are like, everyone needs to eat mushrooms all the time. I don't really. I mean, like, I think people should try them. I think it changed, right? I think psychedelics can change your outlook on life and do a lot of stuff, but like.
And I
no
think microdosing can help a lot with depression and stuff too. Like it's worth a try if if nothing's working for you.
Sure.
Like give it a whirl.
But nothing's universal, right?
So that's like marijuana. Like everyone's like, oh, you should smoke pot. It's great. And I have yet to find like a strain that works for me in a positive way. And whether it's always going too far or what, like the anxiety that comes along with it has always been brutal.
And something I'll say about pot too, just in general, is if you don't smoke it regularly, it's not very fun. Like,
that's a good
because that's
point.
the thing.
It's too fucking much, man.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Like I have a tolerance built up, but like I quit smoking for like a month, and then I started like years ago, and I started again because my dreams were horrible. But but the first time I smoked weed after not smoking it for a month was fucking awful. I was like, holy shit.
Do you remember 420 when we tried to do that? We tried to do this episode where I was supposed to do 4 hits and he was going to do 20 and we were going to level out. And the first one was fine. The second one was fine. And I think we still had the video, but it's such a weird thing to do because I became so at a high vibration of nonverbal. It was insane.
Yeah.
Well, and here's the thing though, you overthink stuff too. So in order to get him out of it, I just had to occupy his brain with something else.
Right. So then I was playing like,
I put him on Call of Duty.
Which is crazy because you think, oh, what's going to make it more anxious is like being in a war set, but it actually calmed me down because it was just hyper
This
focused.
is video games.
Yeah, because you got so much shit to think about other than, am I dying?
Yeah, what's going on? Why? I need this to be occupied.
Well, shit.
So, Jonathan, can we talk about the event just a little bit? I know we're running on time, but how did the event come about? You said you wanted this. What are you hoping for the outcome outside of just data?
Yeah, so I mean, outside of just the data that we're going to collect, which is a huge amount, obviously raising awareness about Psychedelic Club. We're raising all the proceeds and stuff go to support Psychedelic Club's kind of mission and programmatic stuff. It's fully a volunteer board and all of that. But really, I mean, we really want to get the conversation going around knowing, like around testing, knowing what you're eating. And to your point was like creating the demand, right? Creating the demand at the consumer level that I need to know what I'm taking. I don't like, I had a friend who got some Molly microdose stuff, but it just said contains MDMA. I was like, okay, well, how much? And like, there's just so much of that stuff going around. There's a lot of the research chemicals and all of that stuff where people are just, like down the hatch.
Right. Well, and some of it, you might have a bad experience, but at the end of the day, had you taken an amount that you knew you needed, you might have had a good experience.
Or vice versa, right? Yeah, but like it
how
allows
much
you to do
2CB I or E is in this capsule?
But if you're taking, if you think it's LSD and it's something, no one's given to us, but I think it's really important for people to do that. Then you demand, then and then there's all sorts of different conversations that you can have about it.
What's the best way for people who want to get involved?
Yeah, so for the cup, so we sold out the cup, actually. The cup's on November 2nd. That's going to be at Mile High Station.
And I'm honored to be hosting it.
Yes, and you're hosting.
Super excited.
I do need to make the social media post about that. And so other than that, you can check out Psychedelic Club of Denver on Instagram, social media, like Facebook, all that stuff. They do bi-monthly meetings at Mercury Cafe. So downtown.
I think I've met you there too because I performed for one of the Mercury Cafe events.
Yeah,
I think like maybe a year and a half ago.
Was that for the comedy show?
Yeah.
Okay, I may have been there. I may not have been there.
Yeah,
but
I'm like, you just look familiar, so I'm guessing between cannabis or something.
It's possible. It's possible
over the last.
And Jonathan,
time.
So if someone hears this and they're interested in getting involved with the Denver Psychedelics Club, but they might be nervous. What can they expect at
Play
like,
Call of
these
Duty
when you're...
No. Bring your so the space that we have, Mercury Cafe, it's like a really nice kind of coffee shop. We get our own little it's a coffee shop venue. We get our own little big space.
It's a beautiful ballroom upstairs.
I did that show there a long time ago. That was wild.
And so at these meetings, people can learn about all the different. So we talk about the different drugs, different drug safety things. We look at a lot of the history. It's a good networking thing. But if you're we start every meeting with, you can't buy anything here. You can't trade. We're not open for that. It's just kind of like like-minded people get together, talk about substances and different things, and kind of do a lot of volunteer work.
Okay.
A lot of kind of community building, education.
So you don't have to, you can just come in with an open mind and be kind of curious. You don't have to come in with like, oh, I need to know these certain topics to be accepted in this group.
Nope. No, you don't. The meetings are free. They're open to the public. They're not. Yeah.
And from my experience of just performing there, it was a cool group. Everybody was nice. And,
they're great.
Yeah, I had fun just shooting the shit with people before the show and after. So
it's a great community. There's, you can be a member. It's one of those like pay as you want or wish.
Gotcha.
So you can kind of pick your membership level, do that. Then there's a whole bunch of other things that members get to do. We have Discord channel and a bunch of members only events and discounts and things like that. And so it's just a really awesome organization.
Hell yeah. Well, I'm excited to see how the testing comes out for the event and, what you learn.
Yeah.
Because this really is kind of a new area of mycology, I guess, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's a new area of anything. And we're going to post all the data is going to be posted like anonymously. And we've collected a bunch of information. So growing media, dehydration, times, things like that we put on the form. So there's a lot of data that we're just going to release.
Are you doing like anything like where everybody got the same spores and then you...
No. But we did have people. So this is something, right? There are cups around the country. There's cups in Oakland. There's cups in Michigan. There's cups. There are cups that are happening.
For psilocybin or psychedelic cups.
Yeah. So for psilocybin. But I think everyone should, as far as the mission goes, I don't think there's a bad thing. I mean, for that's more of a growing competition. But I know people want to do that. They should absolutely do it. Someone should do it.
What are some of the categories, if we can talk about that these will be judged on? So
we have most potent, most psilocybin, most psilocin. We also did average psilocybin and lowest psilocybin, just to kind of shift the paradigm conversation around from highest potency. And then we have highest
because
overall.
Those low potency may fucking slap.
Yeah, or right, like the middle potency.
They might be that Bubba Kush.
I like it. I like mine to be around a 12 milligrams per gram. That's what I can eat a gram of that. I like it. But I know I can make that decision now. So we have that. We have highest overall alkaloid content and highest overall potency. So that would just be everything. And then we have, so it's 6 categories plus times 2. So 6 times 2, we got 12 overall like award categories.
Okay.
And so we're just going to be looking.
And then there's a size, is that right? Or was because it wasn't off weight, but it's the largest.
So we are doing a live competition, sort of like a beauty contest kind of thing. So we will have some mushrooms there. They won't be to touch. They'll be behind like a thing.
What is the largest one you've seen?
Oh boy, the largest one I've seen was dry. Well, so wet, they're insane.
Right, because I've seen some photos of like
but
like
wet they
chest.
lose like 90. Once they get dry, they lose about 90% of their weight. I've seen like 100-gram ones.
Whoa!
Like I'm pretty sure I saw one that was just massive.
Yeah,
mushrooms.
I've seen people holding it. I mean, they're just.
I've grown one that was like 16.
Wow.
Like, maybe 100 grams might be a lot, but the biggest one I've done was 160 wet.
Well, fuck yeah. Well, shit,
So,
I think...
November 2nd, check it out. Keep an eye out because they can go to the website and still get information on it, even though they can't attend, correct?
Yeah, so you can go to www.psychedeliccup.com. Check out our sponsors. We've got about 18 or 20 sponsors at this point. We've got some cannabis brands, some mushroom growing companies, some other, almost all of them are Colorado based.
Awesome.
Nice. What do you got coming up, AJ?
So I've got, this is the big pitch here. November 18th, I'm on The Dose. The Dose. Do you like live comedy? Do you like psychedelics? Do you like weird and eclectic venues?
Oh, yeah.
Then I've got the perfect show for you.
Oh, yeah.
The Dose. A psychedelic comedy show, and it's taking place right here in Denver, Colorado on November 18th at one of Denver's most vibrant and surreal venues, New Conscious. So this event is private because it is a members-only thing. A membership is $20. The ticket would also be $20, but for our listeners, we're getting a discount code, and that discount promo code is 10strip. That is 10STRIP, 10strip. That'll take 50% off the cost of the ticket, taking you down to $30 gets you in. Now, what's that going to get you?
What's a 10 strip?
What's a 10 strip? Well, it's one more than a 9 strip. So, what's your $30 get you? Well, it gets you in the door. There's a comedy show up front, and then afterwards, there is music playing until 4 a.m. by Earthcry, one of the members of Papadozio. Also, all the stuff you can drink is all open. So, open bar for members. So, yeah, come down, check it out. I believe doors are around 9:15. Show's going to start around 10:15. And you can sit and chill and wind down. It's also completely immersive, so you are encouraged to...
You are covered in a liquid.
Yeah. You're encouraged to do what you can. So as the promo says, take yours because we'll take ours.
Hell yeah. As always, come to the Sloan's Alamo. And then I will be headlining Denver Comedy Lounge the 9th through the 11th.
Yeah.
That is 6 shows over 3 days. So come catch one of those and buy my fucking album, please.
Yeah, pick up his album. Also pick up my album. But definitely send some support towards...
Set his down, though. Keep mine.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, I think I have an opinion on whether or not Jonathan's a hippie or not.
I do have I have a strong opinion.
Yeah. All right. Let's go here.
Ready? 3, 2, 1. Hippie.
Yeah,
for sure. Solid. East Coast hippies. I knew it immediately when you were like, I was at the SPAC, and I was like, all right.
Yeah, when you said that you needed that you put on button-ups to go to the fish show so that people...
That's awesome.
I was like, oh, wearing disguises. And then it makes me laugh because I wear button-ups, but I have long hair. So in order for me to go disguise, I have to look like a hick.
Yeah.
That's true, yeah.
I have to put on camo in a trucker hat. But
that's not bad tech either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a gray area. But
it's like the old Bob Dylan song. You got to pull that hair up under the hat.
But yeah, thanks so much for coming on, Jonathan. And yeah, go check out the Denver Psychedelic Club.
And please, stay in touch. If there's new events coming on, we'd love to have you back on the show.
It'd be fun
forever
maybe
a friend of the guest.
to have you on in a while and see what leaps science has made.
Yeah, for sure.
Great.
Oh yeah, thanks so much, man.
All right, like, subscribe, and get on the motherfucking...
Hey, this is Zach. My debut album, Punching Jesus, is coming out November 9th. You can buy it on pre-sale on iTunes and Amazon now at hippie.pod.com or scan the QR code on the screen. Thanks so much for your support, and while you're there, pick up a copy of AJ's new album, Too Fast for Rain, as well. Thanks.